Hello and welcome everybody to this broadcast, today hosted in English. Today we're going to talk about how you can improve your work environment and your business performance by leveraging insights from IoT sensors and the information derived from that. With me to discuss this topic, I have two very knowledgeable guys. I have Vinay with me in the studio here from Leapcraft, and on a connection from Italy, I have Nunzio from ABB Measurement and Analytics. And today we are going to take you through an exciting agenda where we will talk a bit about what it is that ABB and Leapcraft has devised through their experience in the field. We'll talk you through the solution, both in terms of the hardware and in terms of the services that comes from this. We will share some customer insights on how customers and companies can actually benefit from this and how they do benefit in practice. And then finally we'll get to some tips on how to get started with this, what to consider in the process. For those of you who have tried it before being part of these broadcasts, we will do the Q&A as we used to, and for the new ones here, this means that you can ask questions via the Livestorm link that you received by mail, and we will try and answer the questions at the end of the session. So with those words, I would like to get started, and I would like to give the word over to Nunzio, and he will give a short presentation about himself and what he's working with. So maybe we should see you, Nunzio, if the connection is still working.
Okay.
How are you?
Very fine, thank you, Ian, and good afternoon to everybody. Quite a pleasure for me to be here and to share with you some thoughts and some consideration about environmental and sustainability protection, sustainability concern, thanks to digital improvements. My name is Nunzio Bonavita. I'm working in ABB since over 30 years, and I had the opportunity to gain experience in a number of different segments. But in the last 7-8 years, I focused mainly on applying innovation and data-driven solutions to measurement and analytics, which is the division I work for right now. So if we want to start talking about why we are so interested, let's say that ABB is definitely quite involved in environmental protection since many years. ABB is one of the leaders since more than 25 years in emission monitoring, which deals with measuring and monitoring the emission at the stack from the main industrial units. And we have a complete suite of products that fit all the possible needs. Let's say that we have over 60,000 systems installed. We have more than 600 engineers devoted just to service our installations. We have more or less 15% of market share, and we have our system installed in more than 50 countries. At the same time, in the last years, we were one of the players that were very keen to get involved and to try to exploit the digital transformation, the digital disruption, in order to completely change and improve the industrial environment. We as ABB have our brand suite of solutions named ABB Ability, which are partly based on Microsoft Azure as cloud services. And the goal, of course, is starting from the device and sensor, which is our traditional strength, and climb all the pyramid in order to achieve intelligent and smart management of all the assets in industrial and infrastructure for our industry and infrastructure customers. Of course, dealing with innovation today is quite a challenge for everybody. And what we have definitely realized is that open innovation is key in digital transformation. Large corporations like ABB are quite stable and robust organization that I like to compare with a cruise ship. If you want to cross an ocean, cruise ship is the right choice. But of course, cruise ship is not as much agile and flexible as other solutions like a jet ski or a smaller boat. So if you like, we realized that in order to keep the pace of this frantic pace of innovation, we should merge stability coming from large corporation and agility and quick decision and the quick deployment capabilities that are more inherent to smaller companies or startups. So this was a kind of strategic choice for ABB to merge the traditional R&D with this kind of partnership and open innovation concept. The result for us, of course, is to move from emission monitoring, which is our traditional strength, to a larger concept that we like to call environmental sustainability. We have quite a challenge in front of us because the World Health Organization is very accurate in quantifying the damage coming from poor air quality, and just to name just to quote only a data, almost more than 4 million people die because of outdoor air pollution in 2016. But at the same time, there is a growing social pressure on all the major players in order to reassure social acceptance from the neighborhood and from the social environment that are around any given facility. ABB response is, of course, to try to expand the envelope, exploit digital transformation and digital technologies as enabling technologies in order to go beyond the traditional envelope and work with very qualified partners in order to expand our value proposition into the environmental intelligence. So trying to combine our traditional strength with what digital makes available and what companies that are agile and very quick to operate can supplement to our offering. And this is where we have had the opportunity to select and to come in touch and select what is, in our opinion, a great partner, which is Leapcraft. And we started working with them. And I think that Vinay could tell something about what was so appealing to us.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Nunzio. Maybe before we move over to Vinay, can you tell us a bit about, in your area of work, what typically triggers the customers to contact you? What is the situation they are in?
Let's say that as today and or as yesterday, better, the main concern for our customer was to achieve compliance. Their main concern was to trespass some limits and to have problems with authorities that could prevent them to operate. And of course, emission monitoring was an important point, but not their core business. This was a kind of prerequisite. We think, and we start having feedback, important feedback by the major customers, that there is a growing awareness that environmental is not just something that you have to comply with, but environmental could be also resource, both for improving the production capability, for improving the workers and the employees' feeling and attitude, but also to improve the reputation and the relationship with the surrounding environments. So I think that we are witnessing a change, a transformation from what was used to be environmental until yesterday, and what is today and more will be tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. So, with me, as I said, I also have Vinay from Leapcraft, and I know you also have a lot on your mind and on your plate. Maybe you can give a brief introduction to what you do.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Jan, and thank you, Nunzio, for the trust and the relationship so far. We're on a pretty exciting journey with ABB, and I just want to share some thoughts of how we are achieving this and show you a case study, a specific site that we did together. But as a background, we are a company that sort of believes in driving healthy and sustainable buildings and cities. So we are very focused on creating what we call a sensing as a service platform for environmental sustainability. So we do this using a combination of data science, software infrastructure, as well as hardware and IoT devices. So essentially what we're going to talk about today is just show you one specific industrial site that we did. And the basis of that industrial site is one of ABB's largest production facilities in Italy, on the shores of Lake Como, very scenic location. And that's where these little sensors that we design and manufacture got implemented in collaboration with the deployment team of ABB. So these devices basically measure all indoor climate parameters. That includes aspects like CO2, fine particles in the air, acoustics and noise levels. It also measures different volatile gases in the atmosphere. It measures temperature and humidity, of course. So it's basically a sensor fusion approach, combining a whole host of different sensing capability into one single compact unit. This product has been quite matured over the last 4 to 5 years, and this was an interesting deployment where we basically covered the factory floor with quite a few of these devices. We also have an external device that looks like this. This is called the Copenhagen Sense. It's a little homage to the city of Copenhagen, who actually promoted the solution in the early years, about 5 years ago. It measures all external parameters that's relevant, so that includes different gases and particles and external influences that's coming. And Nunzio briefly mentioned this issue around the difference between what's coming out of the emissions from a factory or a chimney and what's happening to the neighborhood or the surroundings. And the other way around, how the neighborhood conditions are actually influencing the production capability, quality control, and health and well-being of people who are working inside the facility. So there's this dual relationship, and with these two devices, we can basically establish that relationship and create a holistic picture of what's actually happening on location. Yeah. Okay. What we also delivered in the ABB case was a sort of a dashboard and a scorecard that allows for monitoring of all systems in one shot, so that you get an overview of what's actually happening to the facility with some specific KPIs where you can measure different concerns that's relevant for both the facility operator, but also from compliance and regulatory requirement for authorities to actually use. So it sort of creates transparency in the system, and that's kind of key to a lot of these kind of ideas. Yeah. What's actually available is 3 different software interfaces. We have a web dashboard that allows typically a facility manager or a remote management team to look at the facility and make judgment on if things are moving as per plan. We have mobile apps that the field staff can use to adjust, for example, set points and parameters in the ventilation system, or adjust the different processes in the production in order to tweak and optimize. And then we also generate these detailed monthly reports that are more trying to match up with standards. So it sort of creates a benchmark and a facility benchmark, and also compares different facilities against each other, so that you get a one snapshot overview as well as documentation for authorities in terms of what measures you're taking to actually stay compliant.
Yeah. Okay, so I know that you just didn't just sit in a lab and devise all of these nice tools. I know that you, together with Nuncio, as you mentioned, Nuncio, you had a good project in a factory, and maybe Nuncio, you can tell us a bit about that, an introduction to that.
Yes, sure. Of course, when we started to be very interested in Leapcraft technology, we told ourselves what's best that test the technology on ourselves, on a place we know very well. So we selected our factory, which is the center of excellence for the ABB global network for pressure transmitters and pressure transducers, which is located on Como Lake, as said, a very scenic and nice location, but also a very modern industrial building with several areas, production areas, but also with a lot of offices, because it is a very integrated center of excellence where we start from the design and the concept of the pressure transmitters up to the production and testing and delivery of. So we have a number of different environments that have different operations, different conditions to be monitored. This is a place where we have more or less 200 people working. Half are workers in the production processes, and more or less 50% are white-collar employees that are working in order to support the production itself. The factory, as said, is pretty complex, even if it's integrated, because we have a dozen of different areas. It is very modern, very high-tech. We use a massive number of robots in order to have the accuracy and the flexibility required. And so we deal with a number of different chemicals, also because of glues, because of solvent, because a number of different needs. And we have also rooms, because a lot of the production has to be done in almost hygienic, almost drug-making conditions, and so it's a very integrated but very different environment. And I remember during the first survey that even Vinay said, "Oh, this is very interesting just because of the complexity of the environment." So what we did, we installed 15 monitoring devices. One was related to for the outdoor, and 14 have been placed in offices and in workshops or manufacturing areas. Each module measures CO2 temperature, humidity, particulate, two kinds of particulate, light and noise. And they are connected to a Wi-Fi network, which automatically sends the data to the Leapcraft cloud. What was remarkable was that the commissioning was done in a pretty critical period, because it was between Christmas and New Year's Eve last year. But this was completely smooth, because in 24 hours we were able to commission. So this was another positive impression we had from the technology, let's say.
Okay. Yeah.
We can. I would like to leave Vinay to comment something about the dashboard and how the results can be monitored, because this is his technology, let's say.
Okay. I guess that was a good cue to you, because yeah, I saw these slides and I was wondering, I probably need an explanation of that.
Yes. So this gets a little deeper and technical, but essentially what we do is that we show a complete overview where we integrate the flow plans, we integrate all the parameters and a snapshot of benchmark standards all in one view. So we have ability to import your flow plans, bring it on interconnect all the sensor parameters, and create a very simple, usable dashboard. Basically, that's the purpose. And as Nunzio already explained, the speed of commissioning is a very key aspect to all of these things, because you cannot stop production, you cannot essentially block systems. So you need to have agility in terms of how you set up these things, but also how the data starts flowing instantly into these kind of digital systems. Yeah. So we've taken the bottleneck away in terms of cloud infrastructure, commissioning, provisioning devices, interconnect, security, all the steps that's required, and made them into just 3 clicks essentially, and you get the data next moment. So what happens is you can go into detailed views. So for example, if you go to the next slide, you can see, you can actually see and monitor each specific area. So this, for example, is a clean room welding area, where some of the critical parts of the transducers that they manufacture are actually assembled. Here we were monitoring for particulate as a very key focus, because high levels of particle concentration can affect quality of production in these kind of environments. Same thing as temperature stability and humidity stability in the space. And the emissions of different gases. So for example, corrosive gases are problematic. They do not create direct harm, but in very, very trace amounts, they actually influence the quality output of production of sensitive stuff.
So actually this, by monitoring this, you can actually kind of protect your yield or improve your yield if you are aware of the emissions that there are in your indoor environment.
It also helps you optimize the ventilation systems, and there's a double benefit from that. One is the yield output, but also energy savings, because sometimes you don't need to over-ventilate spaces or overheat spaces. And this is something that we've noticed in many other cases also, where because the facility manager doesn't have a very detailed overview of how the facility is actually performing in reality, they tend to always overshoot just to stay safe. And that's okay. But I think given all the sustainability values that we're all aspiring for, I think that dimension also becomes important, that it's not about extremes, it's about actually achieving high balance optimization.
Yeah. So no hurricanes indoor. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
And what we also do is that we provide sort of a report every month to the facility operator, where you can actually see the influences changing over time. We compare the standards to different data to different standards. So for example, this is one of the European standards that we follow for this particular facility, but for different customers, it could be different types of standards. For example, in the US, it's quite different, the standards. Also, there's a variance a little bit inside Europe itself. Each country can adopt the directives on the European level into different local, regional legislation. So we are fairly flexible about that, and that's also another thing that we tried exploring with ABB, is how can we adapt and localize and customize to a reasonable extent without compromising on scalability and speed, because both are equally important. And it's a key value that we actually really cherish with ABB, because as Nunzio alluded to before, ABB can provide all the, you could say, the fundamental infrastructure and the support pillar required to deliver a robust solution on a global scale, while we come in and we make changes and adaptations and we fit into the specific requirements. So for example, humidity control is a big issue in many industries. Same thing is particulate contamination, especially if you're in food industry or if you're in precision manufacturing, pharma production. And typically these systems are overcomplicated because they have different classes of clean rooms, and they tend to be overstructured and designed for a certain purpose. What we come in is provide ground truth and reality in real time. And that makes a big difference in both yield, but also in quality of production for people and the people's health and well-being in the space.
So Nunzio, maybe this is unfair, we didn't agree to this, but I have a question on this fine report for the building that we see how you use this information. Do you discuss the topics? I see there were a few areas where you could improve. Who is this brought to in your organization, and how do you leverage the information?
So this is very interesting because you know, I worked for many years in advanced process control, and then I was the supplier. And when I visit any given factory, any given processing unit, the owner was always saying, I know my factory, I know my place, there is nothing that could be improved. And this was not true, because of course there is always margin. And the same happened to us. We felt that we had an appropriate control of our building, our workshop, and our shop floor, and it was not. So having the data really make a big change, because it really increased your awareness. So in a few weeks, I would say in a couple of months at the most, we realized that there was something we could make for improving, especially on the humidity level. So we were running some areas at in condition too dry, and we had some employees that were not concerned, but was already suggesting that something could be done. But having the data showing that there is room for improvement was impressive. And this is proving also to have an advantage. Also, so we changed our ventilation and heating schemes. We worked with our suppliers of heating and air conditioning. And we feel that we are having already an impact also on production, because working with microelectronics and microelectronics components, if you increase humidity, you decrease the capability of electrostatic charging, which could damage. And so we are seeing something that could be impacting also on our bottom line in terms of better management of the production capabilities.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing that we often hear from a lot of people is that, oh, the ventilation systems already have the sensors, so why do you need additional sensors? This is a very common question that we get. I think there's a few things that's worth clarifying. What we do in these kind of systems is measure where it's relevant. So it's not in the ducts, and it's not in the ventilation plant, it's not in the air handling units. It's actually where people are and where the processes and the machines are. Yeah. So because these sensors get so small and compact, we can actually tuck them away in different locations and create a pretty holistic, detailed understanding of what the issues are, because there's quite a bit of variance in the factory floor. The second thing that's worth mentioning is that calibration. Because if you don't have precision calibration and continuous monitoring of that, the data that you get from any other system is not, in our world, valid enough to create actually a benchmark. So providing the calibration systems and automation around that, and providing really detailed nitty-gritty information at the right locations, is a kind of important value that a lot of facility managers understand and they know, but they don't have tools to actually act upon. Okay. So what we are trying to make is a really simple process and a tool to implement such a mindset.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Yes. So we're running very close to the end of this broadcast. Unfortunately, there are many things we could talk about, but I also wanted to give you guys a chance to talk about recommendations for getting started. What would you recommend, Nunzio and Vinay, for how companies can get started with this journey? Apart from contacting you, of course.
I think Nunzio should probably answer this.
But let's say that we, as ABB Measurement and Analytics, because of our mission, let's say, we see at least two big areas where this technology could be very relevant for process owners and customers at large. The first one is coupling that with emission monitoring. This could provide a reinforced approach to environmental protection, because you don't just monitor what comes out of your chimney, but you see also what is the effect on the environment. But at the same time, I think that what is very relevant for our customers are often the scapegoats that could be blamed for everything which is exceeding some limits, even if it is not due to the process units. Having this kind of out-of-the-fence monitoring, to me and to us, could be very relevant in order to improve their reputation and also to prove their good habit and good performances.
Okay,
so
I think we're running really out of time here, so I'd like to thank you for that answer. And then what I will recommend is that everybody checks out the presentation afterwards, which you will receive, and then you'll have some links to be able to follow up on that. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.